Hello everyone. If you've seen my videos, you know I got end-stage liver cirrhosis. But another thing I have that I wanted to talk about today was hypermobile Ehlers Danlos syndrome. What is it? Hypermobile Ehlers Danlos syndrome is a connective tissue disorder. It affects the collagen in your body. Collagen is in all these building blocks that hold everything together. Think of them as the scaffolding of your body, okay? You have collagen in your skin, in your abdominal wall, inside your organs, in your tendons, ligaments. All these things have connective tissue. They're all types of connective tissue and collagen. You have collagen in your ears, in your eyes, all throughout your body, in your mouth, everywhere pretty much. Basically what happens is the collagen doesn't form correctly, so it becomes loose. So instead of that structure being held together properly, it's just kind of loose, like things pop in and out. They, kind of tend not to sit right. Another thing that you tend to see with this is double jointedness, like being able to bend things the way you shouldn't be able to bend them. I could like bend my legs backwards and goofy things like that. Now it hurts to do that stuff. When I was younger, I thought, hey, look at me, this is cool. Not so cool when you get older. But basically what happens is your tendons and your ligaments that hold your joints together no longer they don't have that strength. They're basically loose. So your joints are kind of flopping all around. So your muscles have to take over the place of what those ligaments and tendons normally would do. So your body recompensates and tells your muscles to keep on, to hold it together, try to keep you in place. So your muscles are constantly working when you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. They're constantly holding things together, so they're never really at rest. Like a normal person, you sit down, you relax, your muscles relax. Somebody with hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, that doesn't happen. So pain is a real common. Since I was a young teenager, I remember constantly being in pain. It would be like somebody draped a hot blanket of pain over me that started from my neck, into my shoulders, down my arms, into my fingertips, down my knees, into my feet, my ankles. Everywhere would just hurt all the time. Hot showers would make it worse. Things that would normally relax the muscles don't, and it tends to make these things worse. And over time, the muscles had built up to strengthen, to hold everything together. So I was quite muscular at one point or another because of the fact that the muscles were constantly working. Then I wound up with end-stage liver disease, and it ate all my muscles, so we're back to square one. But anyway, it affects things like you can get hernias. I have 3 hernias from it. Basically, that abdominal wall is weak and tears, and you got a hernia. It can affect things like eventually like swallowing. My esophagus doesn't work. It's the esophagus winds up being weak, that connective tissue in it, so it's unable to let go of that food and relax, so it's constantly holding and squeezing, and it doesn't let go. There's a lot of different things that can happen with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and basically it's a lot of pain, and you're just constantly in this state of exhaustion. It can wear you down, make you tired, and there's a lot of other things that can come with it, like POTS is one of them. POTS affects the heart rate when your collagen's off in your body, and I'm not that overly familiar on POTS. I do know that it's a tachycardia syndrome, and it has to do with, which I used to get this really bad, where I would stand up and my heartbeat would go crazy, or anytime I'd stand up I'd get super dizzy, and I'd wind up feeling like real tired and weak and things like that. My heart rate before I wound up with liver disease was always in the not high hundreds, I'm sorry. The resting rate was always a low hundreds, like 101, 105. That was my resting rate for my heartbeats. And after I got the liver disease, the portal vein got blocked, and it's kind of slowed everything down. So I guess the liver disease is the cure for that one. Not in the best ways, but and then you can wind up with what's called mast cell activation syndrome, MCAS. That's basically where your antihistamines go kind of crazy because your body's constantly taking these receptors, and this collagen is in charge of forming, are taking these things in, and they wind up overreacting. Certain foods would turn me red. They tear up the inside of my mouth real bad, real itchy all the time. My hands swell. They wind up swelling up, not like immensely huge, but like the actual in the palms of the hands will wind up like being swollen for like a day or two. And this happens here and there. There's different things like that. You can be allergic to perfumes, different scented stuff. I never used any of those scented things. I stayed away from them because they always bothered me. So I always kind of stayed away from them. I actually, when I went through my teenage years constantly in this kind of pain and stuff, and I had spoke to doctors and they kind of sent me away. And then through my 20s, I'd gone to a whole bunch of different doctors, and they all pretty much just told me that I was too young to have this stuff. I don't have arthritis. It's stress, and they'd send me off. It wasn't until about a year ago I actually got my diagnosis, because I actually had a doctor that cared enough to actually listen. When all these things started happening, the swallowing and the hernias, and I combined it with all this pain and the double jointedness, I started looking for combinations, and that's where I found the hypermobile Ehlers Danlos syndrome. And sure enough, I seemed to check all the boxes for it. And you have to see a genealogist to be able to get diagnosed. And sure enough, that's what I've had all this time. It's damaged my teeth. What happens is you have connective tissue that is not connective tissue, collagen that's formed around the roots of your teeth. For me, and for a lot of people that have hypermobile Ehlers Danlos syndrome, it's not formed properly. So the roots can die out. So basically my roots died from the inside, and then the teeth just broke apart or they crack in half without even having any, cavities or anything in them. They would just snap. Chunks would fall off while I was eating. They never hurt, not once, because the nerve was already dead. So they never hurt. So that's the bonus side to it. I mean, I'd hate to lose a bunch of teeth and be in pain from all those. I'm very grateful that there was no pain from it. They just broke off and fell apart, which is definitely no fun. The fear of losing more teeth in the front teeth. I've already started losing some of them, and it can be embarrassing. It can be tough to live with. It's definitely no fun. I mean, I guess on the positive side, I'm on a feeding tube, so I don't have to worry about chewing, do I? Anyway, some of these chronic illnesses can be a real joy, I'm telling you. But it can really keep you in a lot of pain. And there's different ways that you find that you've got to be able to do. Like, there's exercises you can do to be able to help you with that. The more you move, the better it can actually be, because you're actually moving those muscles in different areas. Where if you're just sitting still, the muscles are focused on that one area, holding everything together. But when you're moving and things are moving, the muscles moving in different ways. So it kind of gives itself a little bit of a break. So the pain winds up being a little bit less when you're walking, moving, and going. Now, this isn't always the case. Not at all. But my knees are in really bad shape. I just wound up having injections in those. They've been crunching since I was 20 years old. And, I went to the doctor. They go, what about this crunching noise? Oh, I don't know. And they kind of sent me on the way. But hypermobile Ehlers Danlos syndrome is something that's starting to get more recognition these days. For years, it was something that people didn't know about and weren't getting diagnosed properly. And now there are different ways. Like I said, there's a scale called the Biden scale, and you have to see a genealogist or somebody that's certified in it. Most of them are going to be genealogists to be able to get diagnosed for this. And they will go through this scale, and anything above, there's like a number criteria, and anything above a 5 for an adult over the age, well, for me, over 40, would fit the criteria, and I scored like a 7, so I definitely fit that criteria. But because of the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, I've lost the ability to swallow food, I've lost much of my teeth, I've had hernias. It can affect the eyes. My close-up vision sometimes will go blurry, and I'll have to pull something further away to be able to see it. It does things like that. I can do weird things in my ears. All of a sudden, my ears will start sounding like they're almost like muffled, and the noise, all the sound will just become muffled in my ear. And it has to do with the connective tissue and the collagen that's in there, because there's lots of little pieces of collagen that are used in all these different things, so it can actually affect almost anywhere in your body, which can make it kind of tough to deal with and live with. Also, somebody who has hypermobile Ehlers Danlos syndrome, their metabolism tends to be different when it comes to medicines. We tend to metabolize them faster. Like pain medication doesn't really work on me. Muscle relaxers do not work at all. Even the higher end, like, the higher end, painkillers that they give you at the hospital, they do not work. I remember I broke my arm real bad when I was in 5th grade, and they had put me to sleep to fix it. But in the process, they had given me a couple shots of some heavy, pain medicine, and it didn't affect me one bit. And they came and gave me another one, and they're like, huh. And, me being a kid, I'm like, I'm immune to painkillers, and I don't know. I thought it was something to brag on, I'm so tough, I'm immune to painkillers. Yeah, you say goofy things when you're a kid. But, it can be hard to deal with and hard to live with, because it really can limit your quality of life. And I've been living with this all my life, and I actually came to the belief that everybody was in pain every single day. If the doctors can't find anything and they keep telling me it's in my, there's nothing there, and it's not really happening or what have you, that, everybody must be in some sort of pain. And I believed that for years. It wasn't until recently that I learned that they're not, body temperature runs lower in somebody with hypermobile Ehlers Danlos syndrome, as opposed to regular temperature being like 98.6. I sit at like 97.5 is what my normal temperature is. So when I've got a higher temperature, my temperature doesn't go as high as what a normal person would be. So a lot of times going to a hospital or a doctor's, they take, check me for a fever, and it'll be like 99.9, when in all real case, I'm like 101.5 for a normal person. And, and they tend to kind of push you off. So it can be real tough, especially in relaying this information. So it is super important to get tested if you think you may have something like this, because of the fact that it does affect different things. Like, it really affects the way anesthesia affects my body. It takes a lot more for it to keep me asleep than what a normal person does. So like when I had my surgery for the feeding tube, they had to cut me open to do it. And, I explained to them, and they had everything ready. They knew what was going on, and they made the process really comfortable because they had that information. So that is super important to get diagnosed if it's the case. Is there a cure for it? No, there's no cure. Like I said, pain meds don't really work. It's just something you learn to deal with, over time. I mean, after a while, you spend 30 years in pain, you kind of start to get used to it to some point. That's why I've always hated that question. On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you say your pain is? Well, being the fact that I normally sit at a 4 or 5, anyway, as on a normal basis, what do you want me to say? It's such a hard question, when you're always in pain. And like I said, it can really affect the digestive system as well, which can really be part of that MCAS that I talked about, that mast cell activation syndrome, because different foods can act up. It's basically your body's, the antihistamines in your body overreacting, and it can go crazy and cause you to break out, turn red, you know, get swollen, you know, different things like that can happen through it. Now, is it necessarily that if you have hypermobile Ehlers Danlos syndrome that you'll have MCAS and POTS? No, it's not 100%. Like for POTS, there's no way me knowing if I actually had it or not, because I don't have the symptoms from that anymore because of the liver disease. That portal hypertension, that portal vein being blocked, slows down all the blood flow in my body. So my heart rate can't jump super high anymore, not the way it used to, because it's actually, like I said, it's restricted. So, but my pulse went back down to what I would consider fairly normal after I wound up with liver disease, which is really weird how one disease can actually change the symptom of another. I find that to be very interesting. Anyway, but hypermobile Ehlers Danlos syndrome is tough to live with. It is painful, it's inconvenient. There's no 100% easy way to stop the pain, and we look like everybody else. You know, somebody who has it doesn't necessarily look different from somebody else. We're not deformed or, necessarily. Some people get it severe enough where they wind up in wheelchairs or using crutches or using canes and things like that. I try to avoid those kind of things because the more I use my body, the longer it's going to keep going as far as how I feel about it. But if you need those different things, there's nothing wrong with that. That's why they're there. They're there to be able to help in those situations and to be an aid, so there's always something good to have. But again, this isn't an overly technical video. It's just kind of a base overall idea of what it is. And I kind of wanted to make this video just for those people out there that might be experiencing something like this and not know what's going on. Maybe that would give them some information to be able to go to the next step and look further into it. So I do appreciate your time watching this video. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, and please follow for further videos. And also, if you'd like to help me, there is a link in the About section of this video. But I want to thank everybody for watching this video and for sticking around to the end. Have a great day.